All right. Good morning. So the alcoholic, we're self-centered. That's the nature of our disease. Um, we've been taught in the 12-step world that selfishness and self-centeredness that we think is the root of our troubles. So and it's hard to see if you're an addict or an alcoholic, even and really almost any human being generally, we're self-centered. It's all about us. But the addict and the alcoholic is to the extreme, is self-centered. And so what goes on in the alcoholic's life is drama. There's always drama and there's always struggle. And so it's hard. We're overwhelmed with struggle and drama. And so how do we get out of that? That's the thing. When we're in the struggle, we're in the drama, it's painful. So that's when we go back to drugs and alcohol, and we're measuring everything by, whatever we're getting. If we're measuring it from our outside instead of from our inside. And so it's hard. I get it. I know it. I've gone through surrendering enough of it to know that it's hard and to be on this path. And so there's that's why we have a program, because the alcoholic and the addict cannot figure this out on his own. Cannot. I've seen hundreds of guys, say, "Oh, I got it. I figured it out. I know now what my problem is. I'm gonna, I'll be okay." And they're not. They're just not. They you know a month later, 2 months later, they're dead, or now we're dying so fast. It's crazy, because or they go out and they call, at 2 in the morning, and they're like, I don't know what happened. And well, we have this, we'll call it a disease. Okay, we call it a disease because it's beyond something that we can fix on our own. And it's the trouble sometimes with calling it a disease is that we think that there's nothing for us to do. Well, there is something for us to do, lots. And so I'm just going to point the direction here really quick, briefly, and you can take this and run with it if you want. I mean, I don't know anything else that works, and I've been studying this for a long, long time. You know, uh, really, I would say that I'm not an authority on recovery. I'm just an experienced old man who's been around for for 40 years in this recovery world, and I haven't seen anything else pull it together, you know, and but even outside of recovery, people are or the addiction world, people are miserable, and this path is for everyone. It really is. It's for everyone. So first of all, we've got to recognize that we are not the center of the picture from our ego point of view. You know, that there, there is a higher power, and my ego is not it. My ego is always going to run from what's in it for me. What about me? Me. My ego is just grossly self-centered. So I can't coexist on the planet when I'm always trying to take, or even when I'm giving because I'm measuring and trying to get. So we have to switch from that self-centered position to a position of how can I serve? What can I give back? How can I be of service? How can I? So really from fear to love. And so what I recommend for lots of people, because sometimes we have such a struggle with this higher power business, and what would, when we struggle with the concept, like people call it God, and you're like, oh shit, I don't talk to me about God. So let's use love as our higher power. I'm back doing this again. I talk about love a lot. Let's use love as our higher power. And then the question is, what would love do? Okay? What would love do? And hopefully you can hear me. I had that plugged in, and I wasn't. Anyway, what would love do? And love would do. Love would. What would love do? If we ask the question, if we kind of say, okay, there is a higher power, and for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to make love my higher power. I'm going to, and the question then becomes, what would love do? And every moment, moment to moment, what would love do? What would love do? How can I? And we transfer into this, literally, it takes some time. It's a process, but into a loving being. Okay, and that's the deal. So, what would love do? And we move into that. I wrote a little piece. I'm going to read it just to kind of remind myself. I sit down here and I never know what I'm going to put. But life of the addict always seems to be a struggle. What's hard to see is that we're so self-centered. It's all about us. Getting ourselves out of the center of the picture is not easy. That's why we need a higher power and a program for living. We little by little think about how can we be helpful. We make love our higher power, and our question moment to moment is, what would love have me do? We ask every day, how may I serve? The struggle and drama fall away. We have purpose. Fear fades and peace prevails. And that's the deal. I mean, it's so simple, but we have to do it, and we have to trust, I guess, that what people are saying when that is true. If you've been around any of the recovery programs, you recognize that hundreds of people are getting recovery, and so why should they have it and not you? And how are they getting it? Well, they're getting it because they're learning how to live in a loving, giving way, you know, and there's no end to the work. I mean, it begins. It's everywhere. You can, go rake the neighbor's lawn. I mean, it's just get out and do something. You can go to the DI and volunteer to the drop-in center. You can. There's lots of work. I mean, it doesn't have to be totally extreme. One of the things that I recommend often is that you pick up your phone and you call somebody in recovery and you say, how you doing? You call a friend, say, how you doing? And so that you reach out to people. I mean, it's just so easy. And I recommend that. Yeah, it's just easy. So, but we can't. We struggle because we're afraid. We're like, what? Well, what happens? Who's going to pay the rent? You know, well, lots of things can shift. You may not qualify for the $1 million house. That's okay. It, you know, one can be really, really peaceful and happy in a very limited, smaller situation, because our situation, where we live, how many cars we own, all that stuff doesn't bring happiness. Okay, it just doesn't. It doesn't bring happiness. What brings happiness is helping and serving others. Okay, that's it. I sound like a friggin' preacher. Okay, I'm going to read from my daily reading book, and we're going to do a quick little meditation. And so, what's the date? The date is March the 20th. March the 20th. There we go. So, this little book was written in 1954, and I've been reading through this for a while. And for almost a year now, we've been reading this every day and given a little bit of, hopefully, some inspiration. And we talk about recovery and talk about, awakening, talk about freedom. The freedom, I mean, there's so much freedom in helping others, in getting out of the way. Stop running the show. Step one, we're powerless and our life is unmanageable. We cannot run the show. Ego cannot run the show. It's always in the ditch. Anyway, uh, March 20th, thought for the day. It says here, when we were drinking, we used to worry about the future. Right, we were full of fear. Worry is terrible mental punishment. What's going to become of me? Where will I end up? In the gutter or the sanitarium? We can see ourselves slipping, getting worse and worse. We wonder what the finish will be. Sometimes we get so discouraged in thinking about the future that we toy the idea of suicide. And that's what happens. Isn't that the craziest thing? Here we are, moments really away from happy, joyous, and free. We can break through so quickly. And yet, we're thinking of, driving our car into a tractor trailer, the front end. I mean, I've seen that. I had a buddy who did it. You know, he drove right into the front of a tractor trailer, and you know, because he couldn't see that life could be free, and that he could have peace. He just could not see it, and it was tough. You know, I mean, it's always tough because when you when that happens, we recognize that that's the mental illness. You know, because we're trapped in this fearful place. Meditation for the day. Functioning on a material plane alone takes me away from God. Functioning on a material plane alone takes me away from God. I must also try to function on the spiritual plane. So, the plane of love. Because when we talk about spiritual, for a lot of guys, it's really confusing. They're saying, what do you mean spiritual? What does that mean? So let's just keep it simple. We're not in mystical school here. We're in, a path for living that makes, that helps us to see how we can be of service. It gives us a meaningful life. And so, you know, let's change the words a little bit. Functioning on a material plane alone takes me away from love. I must always try to function on a love plane. Functioning on a love plane as well as on a material plane will make life what it should be. All material activities are valueless in themselves alone, but all activities seemingly trivial or of seemingly great moment are all alike if directed by love's guidance. I must try to obey love as I would expect a faithful, willing servant to carry out directions. Yes, love's the boss. We have a new employer being all powerful, right? And we go to work for that employer and we can call that employer love. Prayer for the day. I pray that the flow of love's spirit may come to me through many channels. I pray that I may function on a spiritual plane or a love plane as well as on a material plane. So that's the deal, guys. So we're going to sit for a couple of minutes. If you're still with me, we're going to just take, the reason that I lead these little short meditations or sits every morning is to help everybody, really get that it's so easy. It's so easy to sit still. How do we hear the message, love's message or God's message, or if we don't quiet the mind just a little bit. And how do we quiet the mind? We need to practice, and so we do a little sit each day, and I'm going to kind of talk you into it a bit, and practice. Practice, practice, practice. Drop into the quietness, the stillness on a regular basis, and trust me that this is the way to tap in, to feel it, to start to surrender all the noise that's going on in your head, and all the fear, all the struggle, all the drama. Okay. Okay. So close your eyes. And I like to, suggest that we close our eyes for a minute just so that we can drop in. That we're not outside. We're going inside. All the connection, all the power, all the consciousness is inside. It's where we experience it. And what we're going to do as we drop in is we're going to let go of. We're going to let go of. In a way, we let go of our identity. Just let go of the old you for a couple of minutes. Just let go of who you think you are. We're just going to drop into this nothingness. And in this nothingness, there's no David. There's no you. There's just this empty space, this isness. There's no future. There's no next. There's no story. There's no conditions. Just let it all go for just for a minute. Be here now. Be with the one. The one is even beyond the breath, but the breath can take us into this moment close enough. We are that one. That's why it seems so difficult to see, is because we're coming from a position. So let's just drop all the positions, even the observer. And beyond the observer is an observer. And beyond that observer is another observer. Just watch this moment. Be here now. If thoughts come, just let them go. Just let them go. They will sometimes, as we do this for a while, they will kick up a little stink. Just let them go. Gently let them go. Love resides in this moment. Love is here. Love is all encompassing. We are that love. Okay. As we come back, I just want to point out something that as we're sitting and the thoughts keep rolling, and you kind of see them rolling, and sometimes they're just thoughts of, you know, um, one of the things that I think is funny, that sometimes for me the thoughts are like thoughts from a movie that I watched last night. Say if I watched a show on Netflix, and and the thoughts of the movie are still going, the scenes or the characters of the movie. So I know it's not real. It's just story, right? And so, and I'm watching that. I'm observing those thoughts. And if you're in that place where you can see that you're not the thoughts, that they just kind of they come up on their own, well, you're really in that, you know, you're beginning to see that that's the beginning of recognizing that we're not who we thought we were, if you will. That we're so much more or so much less in a way. Ramdas said, becoming nobody was his freedom was in becoming nobody, and as we let go of our identities, we 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 really have this experience of this oneness, of this love. So, love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great day. Okay, bye.